Hi dear health building friends. Welcome today in the video of our Dowland Healthcare program. Today we are going to do things a little bit different than normally because we are going to talk about a subject which is of course today a little bit closer to my heart. Who would have thought that after boosters and after vaccines and so on I would still get COVID by accident, and I will tell you the story about how I got it and so forth and so forth. But I also, most importantly, will talk to you about the symptoms that I got and that I hear also from other people that are similar and different, and what I noticed, what is important to realize about this disease, even when you have been vaccinated and so on, and what are your risks and what are your opportunities and what you need to do to make sure that you will have a good life after. In the meantime, don't forget to like and to become a member of our channel, to become a patron on our Patreon channel, or sign up for one of our courses. That will be really great and it will really help us to get the message out. Hi everybody. Today and for this we have to ask ourselves a few questions. You might have noticed that over the years, when now COVID is already raging this planet, I have been involved in making videos about this topic, and made actually one a little bit ago, a little while ago. And this is sort of like a review of my own experience and what has been going on with me and my family as a result of catching COVID. My commitment to reporting on COVID has to do with the fact that COVID started in Wuhan. I'm really pretty sure that it is like that because I lived there for 5 years. I had a school there. We had a nice big place of 400 square meters. I made wall paintings there and so on to make it look really great. We had a place, a study place for people to come to High East Lake Park, which is a beautiful plum blossom park, very popular with local Chinese. I shared that place together with my sister Tian Li Fang, but also my sifu Yao Xuande had his painting studio there. So we had every day we had people coming from my sifu to our school, and we were receiving them with tea and food, and they were coming there to watch his paintings, to pay his paintings, and to make donations for our Taoist community. And that was for 5 years, almost continuously. Almost every 2-3 days we went to some place, restaurant, and meet all kind of people, local government. I have lots of stories that I can tell about that if I want to. Because of this place, and also having been offered the residence of Mao Zedong as a place to start our school, that was an amazing story. I will have to tell you that apart, separate again. When I lived there, I just basically also gave part of my heart to that city. So when I hear about COVID, I was like, okay, that is serious, because I have a lot of friends there. So I had to make a lot of phone calls. I kept track of everybody. So I knew all the ins and outs, what people were thinking. I had access to the local network, information network, to try to find out more and more. And I was involved also in talks with different hospitals and Chinese medicine doctors to make sure that I got all the right information that I wanted, to make sure that my students first, and also all the other people in the world that might not have access to that information would get the right stuff. Also, since that time, I kept track of medical research and all kind of other things. And I try to keep track of all the gossip about COVID and all the weird stories that people come up with because of their lack of understanding and ignorance. I also try to give good explanations from the level of Chinese medicine and my extrapolations from my first experiences and understandings towards what then later on the Chinese government also started promoting as a conceptual theory for formula making in herbal medicine, food medicine. Kept up. I used acupuncture, I used herbs and food to help people with these kind of things. So I know that my theoretical and practical foundation of dealing with COVID actually is pretty good. But I also realized that I all the time lean on second-hand or third-hand information, medical reports, reports from people who have complaints and so on. And one of the things that is very important as a diagnostician is that the information that people give during diagnosis usually is very impure. In Chinese medicine, they say there's only one source of information which is more important than anything else, that is how the client is describing its complaint. In the past, because people used all kind of metaphors and they saw the poetics of the experience as more important than the chemical analysis of blood and stuff like this, doctors were trained from the beginning how to deal with this kind of information and make it into something that's very helpful. Even the pulse diagnosis, the tongue diagnosis, everything was described in metaphoric language. There was no analytical language for this kind of purposes, but the metaphorical language, the poetry of the diagnosis actually was sufficient to get a good idea about what was going on. And the same was working like that in the I Ching. Many of the classics, citations, everything was done in the form of poetic or semi-poetic association between things. I use that in my clinic, and as a former painter, of course, I am very much more attracted to that part, and I also include it in the training of my students, that I make them aware of the fact that it's not just science what we're doing, but it is also art that you're doing. One day my kids come home and there's all kind of messages appearing in the school that there's kids who have COVID, and I start noticing that one of my kids has some complaints. She feels nauseous, her stomach doesn't feel good, she doesn't feel like eating, and I have all the stories from the school that they have a lot of kids staying at home because all of a sudden they have COVID, classes are falling out. It's in a matter of 2 days. We do some testing with the kids and ourselves, of course, because you want to make sure, because of my clients coming, that I am in a safe zone. Testing, of course, is last year's has been like almost weekly. And normally all the tests always come out in a negative sense, which is positive. And as a result of that, I never had to really worry about things. I took my vaccins and so on, but now the new Omicron version, the stealth version that is also coming, and new variations that are lurking everywhere because there's so many people infected by now, that the new versions are going to come up almost every week, and it's going to be hard to keep track of everything. And the expectations, of course, that the effectiveness of the virus will become less. You see the same happening with Ebola. Ebola became more widely spread and became more slow, so that people would be less infectious, and as a result it could be controlled a little bit more. It is still a very dangerous disease, and there's no real solution for it so far. But in the case of Omicron, it spread so fast that it couldn't be stopped. So that's the opposite of what happens with Ebola. Very interesting to see how different diseases have a different kind of effect. But anyway, I started noticing 2 days after my daughter came home, and I started listening to stories from my daughter, that there was this gym teacher who didn't want the people to wear masks during the gym class, and as a result of that, probably a lot of people got infected. The teachers, they were only half effective, I guess, and also later on there was a replacement teacher who really didn't really like it that people were wearing masks, and she was sent away from school eventually. Pity for her, of course, because she lost her job. But in this time, you have to make sure that you are secure, because when you have children, you bring them to school, you have COVID, probably will be infected one way or the other. So they could spread the disease quite easily, and at the moment when they spread the disease quite easily, other parents also get infected, because it's going to be unstoppable. You're going to see your child when it comes home, you give a hug, you get infected, especially with this Omicron version, which has a very high conversion rate. I wish my promotion for my videos would go so fast. I would be really very successful. I noticed one time that my daughter says, like, "Look, puppy, there is a cat poop next to your food." One of my cats had some problem with her intestines because of whatever she eat outside, and I was standing next to it. I didn't even smell it. That was really weird. So I look to my foot and I see the cat poop there, and I'm like, only at the moment when I see it, I'm more or less aware of the fact that the smell is there. Because of living in China, the polluted air there, I got some long-standing lung problems from that damage, basically, on my sinuses. I got my nose broken with stick fighting in the past also, and as a result of that, my nose is hypersensitive and irritable. Because of meditation, also you become very sensitive, and you get, become aware of a lot of different kind of details, and you have to sometimes really consciously filter out information, and that might be very upsetting. Because of my work, I talk a lot, and it also creates more blood flow towards your head, so irritations also happen more easily. And my daughter, only after one day, she started feeling better again, and she started playing around, maybe 1.5 days. Then a few days later, 2 days later or something like this, I go to bed and I realize my body is burning in my lungs. It's really like very hot. I feel it just flow from here to here, and within 5 minutes time, my whole lungs, they feel like separate from my body, and there's this kind of feeling in the inside, which is, clearly a sort of an infectious feeling. I could really feel like bugs coming into my lungs and filling it up everywhere. Then at the moment when it happens, I also started noticing my body start sweating, night sweating and so on. I understood, because of the COVID at that moment crawling up into my body. Oh, we already did tests before also when my daughter got, and I got tested positive, and my one daughter also got tested positive. And there was a drama because she did everything she could all the time not to get COVID. She was really scared because all the things that she hears on TV, on school and so on, and the people dying. And for children, this is a very big event. And of course, already wear these masks for 2 years, and they are aware, but not that much aware about what's going on. So she really got into a panic, and she cried, and oh man, you should have seen it. Oh, there's a video. Yeah, I put it on the back. And at the moment when I noticed that, I was like, oh, okay, so this is actually really pretty serious, because I just had 4 or 5 days before I had my booster shot. And I was a little bit surprised that in that same period, of course, after all the precautions that I always took, I still now had this COVID. What I did when I saw my child cry is hug my child, of course, and take it and say like, oh, it's okay, you're going to be fine. And that was, of course, the moment when I got infected. Yeah, it was very clear. Sorry for the messiness of my story. At the moment when I feel this heat inside, I realize my whole body, of course, is involved, because I'm a holist thinker, and I'm trying to look for all the other signs everywhere else in my body. And you start noticing your whole body is one way or the other involved. And I started noticing, like for instance, my legs feel more tight, and my arms a little bit, my lower arms, which is for chronic diseases. Usually you find signs in there. It means that the yin of your body is really very strongly attacked at that moment because of the heat. And you see the buildup of dampness inside your body, which makes you lazy, gives you maybe blurry vision, or maybe gives you distraction to do things, makes you slow down and all kind of things. But after one night sleeping and falling asleep with that, I got basically through with that. The symptoms didn't recur, except that the next day I had a lot of slime in my lungs. The thing is, what I noticed is that it is so strong and it is so present that I really had to go into a meditative state to prevent that I would get into a panic attack. And I talked with several colleagues also about their experiences, and they also had the same thing. If they had COVID, that they really had to struggle not to get into a panic. I might expect that my colleagues can be a little bit more precise in the description of their disease, of course. That's why I asked them. So at the moment when I think about that, I'm like, okay, so one of the problems that people have with COVID is that they get into a panic attack. So make sure you learn how to meditate. I currently do a series of meditation. You can follow them on YouTube. They are open. You can watch them anytime, and you can learn to meditate from there, no problem. The thing is that at the moment when I wake up, I feel like, there's this tightness on my chest because of the slime that built up. And it really took me like 50 minutes to cough up all the slime from both my sinuses and my lungs and flush it away. And then after that I felt better. The whole day, no problem at all. In the evening I had night sweating again. So it seemed to be more active for me in the night than in the daytime. And after 2 days, 3 days, I started noticing there's blood in my spit. Not much, just a bit. I treat myself with herbal tea that I make according to the formula that I use usually for these kind of things, and that actually helped. The next day I had a little bit more blood, keeping track, more spots, not really like bleeding or something like this. And I started realizing gradually, when you look at all the symptoms, the tiredness, the tightening of your muscles, the heat in the lungs, and so on and so on, all these kind of things, they fall into this pattern of all these modern cultural diseases that are happening because of the way how we live and the way how we do not live, actually, also, of course. And they fall into the category like things like burnout, Lyme disease, ME, and so on. So all kinds of diseases where tiredness and exhaustion, they play a role. And then this is with epidemic causes, like a Lyme in a way can be seen as an epidemic cause. And what happens is that the body at a certain point gets into an exhaustion point. And if you give in to the exhaustion, your body will go along with it and you feel very tired afterwards. I see that people really are struggling. And from tests and research, they found that if children get COVID and they get really symptoms, that they really get impaired in their learning ability. From adults also, they found that about 10% of your neuroplasticity is going to disappear. So that's a very important part to realize. Also, if you physically go backwards, you age much faster. So on average, they say that having COVID ages you for 10% or something like this. Then there is the problem with the fact that maybe only a few people die. And I really realized for people who are not vaccinated and did get vaccinated, the people who are not vaccinated, even if they're strong and healthy, they just have a few days more that they have problems than the people who are vaccinated. So I really have a benefit from being vaccinated. I realized that I would have had probably, most likely, much more serious problems than that. In a time when I was having these symptoms, my other daughter started having symptoms too, but she was tested negative anyway. So that was really very weird as an experience. After we all got better, apparently, my wife started having this, and she really took a few days that she was really like, she really needed to be in bed, didn't feel comfortable at all to recover from that. Then when I look at all the patterns as a whole, then from all the different people that I also talk with, you can really see that there's this understanding now that 20% or more of the people who have had COVID, they will have after effects. Whether they were symptomatic or not symptomatic, doesn't really matter. 20% of the people who have COVID, they will have after effects. That means there is going to be things happening in your body. One way or the other, this COVID is still producing effects. And I now am 2-3 weeks further, and I start noticing, okay, my legs still are very tight, even though I do stretches every day and so on. It is very difficult to get the crampy-like feeling out of my calf. I know that there was originally trauma from some kind of bodybuilder who thought he would be funny by beating me with a stick on my calves during training. Yeah, I know I did go to the gym when I was much younger to impress my girlfriend. She really wanted me to have big muscles. I think she was have a little bit of a crush on Arnold Schwarzenegger. That is a long time ago. When we go through all these kind of things, for all the people, I can really now see it takes a long time to cure. I had a lot of people coming after that COVID for treatment, and my advice was always, okay, make sure you read books, you exercise, and you do thinking so that you really use your brain and you preserve or redevelop your neuroplasticity as much as possible. A lot of people already have difficulty reading, so for them it is much more important to really start reading, and don't read like Tao of Poe or something like this, but really read a real book, something that really tells you some information, something with footnotes preferably. And if you read about Tao, of course, there's lots of books with footnotes. Even if translations are bad, read critically and analyze what you're reading so that your mind is also busy, and make sure that your brain is active and your neuroplasticity can redevelop. Engage yourself in new projects. Go study something or come study with us for the Chinese medicine courses online, and also in Zoom classes. In here, like for instance, this week is going to be some people coming to have a massage practice course. But all these kind of things, do something, make sure you're going to be active. It doesn't mean that you have to go active out in the world and meet all kind of people, but the thing is that you have to be active to make sure that everything works fine. When I talk with all kind of colleagues, whether they study in Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine, doesn't really matter. They all have more or less the same problem once they have COVID. They think they are very strong, but when they are feeling really very strong normally physically, the chances that they have serious symptoms are really much larger. I always said, look, for COVID, you really have to be very average in your health. That's actually the case. But you also have to have the skill to not panic, because this panic actually causes this rush in your immunity through which your body starts consuming itself after the COVID is apparently gone. So this is the main thing. COVID comes very fast, and it is definitely symptomatically not anywhere similar like a flu or a cold. It is more close to a pneumonia. But pneumonia is in the bottom of your lungs, and this is actually all over your lungs. And in that sense, it's a very new kind of disease, a very new type of lung disease, which has this opportunity to develop because the way how we cross over in nature, and the way how nature in that sense is being closer to us, places in nature that are closer to us now than they were before. And in that sense, it really is a warning shot towards humanity that we really have to start thinking a little bit more about how we procreate, how we appropriate land and natural areas, because every time when we do that, of course, we get more diseases. If we will move to Mars and there's microbiological diseases there, viruses, bacteria, whatever kind of things, they happen to live there in the ice or in the water that they found, and they cannot be filtered out properly. There will be all kind of new diseases, probably killing the first colonists. In our life, in that sense, still hygiene is important, but not that important. You have to make sure you also put your fingers in the dirt frequently to help your immune system and to help your microbiome. The more natural your microbiome is, of course, the more natural your body will be able to deal with all kinds of things. But it doesn't mean that you won't get sick. Also, if you have a vaccine, the vaccine is going to help you because you have already some sort of antibodies in your system, but it is not going to prevent that you get the disease. It's not going to happen. Certainly not with the new variations. It is going to happen. I'm assuming that the next versions will be weaker and weaker all the time, so that for now maybe vaccines are no more required, but I am not the one who decides about that. I'm not a big fan of vaccines in general, but I do see their usefulness. They really do eradicate diseases which are killing a lot of children or adults or elderly. And I have the dream to live 1,000 years or more if I can. So of course I would like there to be a good healthcare, of course, including Chinese and Taoist medicine, and that means a lot of self-care. So what I would advise you is to get into a program where you constructively learn to work on your health, like the program that we have on the Downland program, where you learn some basic theories. You can learn all kind of other aspects of Chinese medicine and Taoist medicine, so that you can learn to appropriate yourself. This year, because of the developments in the Chinese medicine classes, we also start doing workshops and retreats on working with your internal organs, and not in a way how they do that with like Chia and all the other people, but more in the serious Taoist way, how it's been done from early times, and not in a simplified way.